Mm. Yeah. That there, that's a real nice crab. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another modern video, and today David has asked me to play with Modern Crab Mill. So if you are not familiar, a lot of the modern mill decks try to maximize the value of Ruin Crab and its cousin Hedron Crab, both of which end up milling 3 cards each time you play a land. And good news, the landfall cards mean that you get to double trigger them. So it can be very, very easy to just really quickly mill your opponent out if you have multiple crabs at the start of the game. And what better crab to play than Mockingbird? So you can have an effective 12 copies of your crabs. And Mockingbird can be an alternative plan to just copy a Ragavan, a Guide of Souls, an Ocelot Pride, or something else annoying that your opponent plays early on. So it's not just going to be a dead card if you don't already have a crab of your own. Now, this archetype has some top of the curve haymakers that can end up milling for a large number of cards, as well as a gotcha card that can mill for 13 as early as the first turn of the game. There are some cute cards in here, such as Obero, which can be a way to repeatedly make land drops even when you are hellbent. And one of the cards that I haven't seen before is River Churn Monument. For 1 and tapping it, any number of target players each mill 2 cards. Now, that is not impressive. However, the exhaust ability is any number of target players each mill cards equal to the number of cards in their graveyard. Which, as you can imagine for a mill deck, probably reads, you win the game the turn after you play this card. Is that always true? No, but for a total of 6 mana, that is probably lights out for most decks. We are going to have some ways to fight back versus creature decks and buy some time versus aggressive strategies. I don't think I have much else to say here. Let's get in there and let's play some crabs. And folks, if you need some crabs, consider getting them from toamagic.com. Use promo code ThrabenU, save yourself 5% on your order while getting some awesome mill cards to frustrate and infuriate your opponent. Plus, you get free shipping. So with that being said, let's go battle. Let's be crabs. Okay, opening hand is awkward here. I can't grab on 1. I can't crab into Mockingbird on 2 either. And I don't think this is good. I think this hand is very slow. I think I can do better by mulliganing on average. This is very awkward as well. This is single land drop, no crab. Can't get to 3 mana for my haymakers. I will go to 5. Yikes. So now I have all the crabs in the world and no mana. What portion of the time... That's some vintage. What portion of the time do I end up ripping a blue source? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. About a third of the time I'll end up hitting. That's a vintage window. All right, that's got to go too. I think I would rather keep a very sketchy 5 than go to 4 here. I think at 4, I'm just not competitive. But that did not inspire confidence. Pinnacle Emissary. The opponent is gonna do some crimes here. Tormod's Crypt as well. We are nearing turn 1 Kappa Cannoneer levels of nonsense. The opponent produced 3 power on their first turn. I hit Surgical Extraction. I think I don't make this land drop because it represents more mill later on. That's an Urza's Saga. That will just kill me. So there's the Pinnacle Emissary coming back. My opponent has not searched yet. They will end up searching on their Urza's Saga turn. But I think if I don't draw my blue land here, I concede rather than showing my opponent what deck I'm playing. Yeah, that is not a blue land. I'm going to concede and give them no information for sideboarding. We just simply did not play Magic the Gathering. Cost of the basic swamp and the ETB tapped lands was really high, and the colorless lands for that matter. So I'm kind of interested in Consign, kind of interested in Toxic Deluge as a way to clear 1/1s and technically Kappa Cannoneer as well. And to get rid of Surgical Extractions, that just costs me life. A bunch of my opponent's threats that produce creatures aren't actually creatures themselves. Things like Urza's Saga. Do I want some stuff that looks like this? I could. I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and call that good. Maybe I need the Crypt Incursion as well. I could definitely consider going down on some things like Visions of Beyond. Okay, this is a much more realistic hand of Magic the Gathering cards, where I will have, hopefully, 3 crabs going very quickly. I don't think there's any chance that this is a spell, so I'm just going to go ahead and play this immediately. Pass turn. I don't need this upkeep stop on my own turn in all likelihood. Let's see what opponent's got. Nothing immediately. So I'll play a crab. I will make my land drop. Paying the life. Trigger. Mill a bunch. Play a Mockingbird, which is yet another crab. And pass turn. Now, I would like to hit another land drop so that I can just cast this. We are not to 20 or even close to it for Visions of Beyond yet. This eventually can be 13 cards for Archive Trap. Alright. This ended up doing something stupid previously, but I don't remember what it was. So they make munitions. I feel like my opponent tutored up something that let them sacrifice all of their artifacts, and then I died, and I don't remember what it was. There's another Memnite. Always yield to that. Okay, cool. So I can go Landfall, Triple Trigger Crabs, Fractured Sanity U for 13 more cards. Opponent down to 22 in Library. Laws of Gix. Okay. So there is a sacrifice outlet out. Ah, it was Engineered Explosives. Engineered Explosives did the stupid thing where it blew up all of the munitions at the same time. Okay. Thoughtcasts are fine. It means that I'm not facing down an Urza's Saga token directly, which is pretty cool. There's a Steam Vents. My opponent can very happily pay the life. That is not an axis on which I am attacking. There's an EE on 1, which is threatening to kill all my crabs. But my opponent already made their land drop, so hopefully there's just not a Mox Opal that lets them crack it immediately. Alright, very nice. So I will Visions of Beyond for 1 mana. The graveyard certainly has 20 or more cards in it. Wow, I did not hit any lands there. That's incredibly awkward. Whatever, I'll mill my opponent for 26 when they search their library for Urza's Saga. Yeah, I think I'm just good there. So, Saga trigger. No construct token. There's a Mox Opal. Mr. Percy, don't scratch the carpet. Has literally never done that before today, so I don't know what's up with that. Alright, there's cracking the EE for 1, which is fine. Obviously very good. Opponent can send in for 2 damage. I don't care about that. 16. Then Archive Trap you for free for 13 of those cards. Then Archive Trap you again for another 13. And that means that my opponent does not get another turn. Fantastic. So, do I want Crypt Incursion or Drown in the Lock now when I am on the draw? Both are slow, but they certainly have their purposes. EE being a natural part of my opponent's deck, meaning that they can sweep up like all the crabs and the copies of them at the same time, is kind of awkward for me. I think accordingly I'm willing to drop Mockingbird and play 4 of these 6 cards in some capacity. Split. Do Drown in the Locks, bring the Crypt Incursions back in. Seems reasonable. I could also, like, not Archive Trap. Archive Trap doesn't go off all that often, but when it does, it's super important. I'm fine keeping an opening hand that has a crab. I will just need 1 land to be able to Tasha's. My opponent has a bunch of 0-drops. It's weird because they have 0-drops and then they have things like Thoughtcast. Tasha's is going to be a very, very, very high variance card in this matchup. Mox Opal? Cool, that means that I'm not facing down Pinnacle Emissary immediately, and that is good for me. Are we cycling immediately, or no? No. There's a crab. A Mystical Dispute. Excellent counterspell from my opponent. That means my early game gets a lot worse. This is not super reliable anymore without the initial mill 3 that I was hoping for. There's an Urza Saga. Not great for me. Constructs are currently excellent versus my hand. Well, it's not perfect, but I'll take this. This gets me some initial milling. This is not a blue source for visions, unfortunately. But now there's at least enough cards in graveyard where Drown in the Loch can be a relatively respectable counterspell slash removal spell. I'm just going for this right now. Or Metalcraft for Galvanic Blast. Sure, that's reasonable. Opponent has answered 2 of my crabs, unfortunately. There's another crab. I'm missing my land drops, which is like all sorts of bad on various different levels. I think this means that I'm going to end up just destroying a construct token with Drown in the Loch in this turn cycle. I just need that fog to buy some time until I can get this stuff off the ground. Yep. Do I need to be playing around Welding Jar in this format? I hope not. Yeah, that is more what I was expecting to see. So this wastes another one of my opponent's mana in this turn cycle. So we'll drown him in the lock. That saves us 6 points of damage this turn from this attack, and 1 point of damage from this attack as well. So that was big game. My opponent will force 1 more point of damage here. And the ward is super relevant right now, because I'm choked on mana. Oh, not going for the 1 extra point of damage, going for a Thought Cast. I guess on average that probably adds the 1 point of damage back, but this does mean that if I draw another Drown in the Loch, I can take out that Construct token, and my position is so much better. Fatal Push works too. What if the top card of my library is Fatal Push? Damn. Yeah, this basic swamp is kicking my ass. And it has multiple times already. I think I had to mulligan a hand because of it, and now it is not casting critical cards. Sample size of 1 match does not mean, like, Swamp should not necessarily be in deck, but certainly thinking about it. Wow, that is a very big deal that this Swamp is not casting Consign right here. Yep, that is very close to lethal. I don't think I come back from here. I can't Toxic Deluge my way out of this. I think I just did not play Magic because I did not have appropriate mana. Basic Swamp is also a really hard sell in a Fractured Sanity deck. That is just blue, blue, blue. Yeah, sure, that's fine. That is certainly not going to do it. We will go ahead and concede there, and we are off to a rocky start. GG. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you're looking to store your decks online, you're not going to find a better website. It's super organized and easy to use, and I sort everything that I do into a ton of format-specific folders, and you can customize the way that you use Moxfield to your liking. Whether you like text views or visual views of multiple different natures, Moxfield has it all. And it's so easy to use, you might even say that it's a snap. Okay, opening hand has 2 crabs, but does not have a follow-up land drop. I have a 3-drop in hand and a technical 5-drop. I think I just mulligan this one. I think I need 2 starting lands most of the time with this deck. This is weird, but okay. 5 fucking crabs. Let's go. Pass turn. Obero is a surprisingly good land in this exact bizarro instance. There's a Guide of Souls, which I could copy, but I don't think I'm going to. So I can go ahead and add mana with this, bounce this, make my land drop, mill my opponent, and then play a new crab. And I can repeat this process. I would still naturally like to just draw lands, like a fetch land in particular next turn is worth So many cards, right? If I play one more crab, Voice of Victory. Well, that's going to be spooky in a minute. But my opponent is not getting through the wall of crabs. Okay, so I fail on hitting the land drop, but I can keep doing this. Make my land drop, milieu, then the crabbing will continue until morale improves. What's that? Arbiter, sure. That's very good. Sacrifice the land, destroy target non-basic land. They can search for a land card. Well, that's real bad for me. Another turn down the line. Path to Exile plus land and Arbiter. Notably very good here. My opponent will get up to enough energy that they can make something fly with Guide of Souls. And they are choosing the Voice of Victory. So I can block a little bit of damage here. That Leonin Arbiter means that my fetch lands aren't good anymore. That is very bad for me. This is not castable off current lands. There's Obero. Triggers targeting you. Play another crab. I don't think I'm going to I don't think my mill outpaces my opponent's damage here. I also think I made a mistake. I think I was supposed to play a Mockingbird as a 0/3 crab rather than play this. So now I lose Obero with no ability to search. Yikes. This is probably about the point where I can just concede. My deck did not produce mana in a way that allowed me to play Magic. Like, the Obero was cute and all, but, you know, missing real land drops for 3 turns in a row means that my hand that could have been amazing was not. I'm going to go ahead and concede there and assume that this beats me. So let's get these surgical extractions out of the deck. Let's play some amount of additional interaction here. Crypt Incursion is probably very good here. Toxic Deluge in my deck that wants to accumulate crabs is also pretty awkward. Just accept that that is what that is and try this. Alright. This has lands and spells. I am really not liking these ETB tapped lands. Like, this means that I have to use a Polluted Delta to play this crab on 1 if I want to play the crab on 1. Otherwise, I take a turn off. Not a fan. I think that is what I'm going to do. I have Field of Ruin. Alright. There's an Aether Vial. Sure. So I will go grab, fetch, grab ya, fetch. Because my lands can get blown up, I think I'm going to go ahead and do this here. Grab ya. And then go Mockingbird on crab. Opponent's file can tick up to 1. I would really like to see a non-basic land that gets tapped. Didn't happen. Well, I mean, what am I here to do if not this, right? Save targets. Always yield. Getcha. I don't think I tap out for Tasha's here. I think I'm going to pass the turn and be able to Fatal Push something stupid like a Felia that comes in. Sure. There's a Guide of Souls. That's fine. Hey, something stupid like a Felia. Bam. We'll go ahead and do that. I think before this vial can go up to 2 and things can get uncomfortable, I'm going to go ahead and do this and grab my other Surveil land. So mill you a bit. I'm looking at a Field of Ruin, which is fine. I will go ahead and take that. Opponent goes up to 21 life. Mr. Percy wants the window open. And then we'll see what my opponent's got going on. Land drop. Another Guide of Souls. Up to 22. 2 energy. Let's see what this is. That's a Leonin Arbiter, which is slightly awkward for my whole Field of Ruin thing that I've got going on. Now my opponent can make their creature fly. This one is flying now, for what it's worth, but I'm not going to block. 13. So I'm going to get Ghost Quartered here, and I can't pay the 2 for the search. And a path. Rough. Alright. So my Field of Ruin is now noticeably much worse. I could destroy my opponent's land right now, or I can Tasha's. I think I care more about like getting the other land drop here. I'm going to just Tasha's. That was worth 9 cards, which is mid. File to 3, taking a medium amount of damage here. Down to 7. Kinda need something else here. Yeah, this whole Leonin Arbiter thing with the Archive Trap is very awkward. So I get to mill you for a little bit. Then I think I'm just passing the turn, and we see how this whole Field of Ruin thing ends up going. I would like my opponent to pay for Arbiter so that they can search for Field of Ruin, and then I get to Archive Trap them for 13. Oh, I see. They are just trying to get energy. Sure. So now they did not cast it this time. I think I now need to cycle Fractured Sanity into a removal spell, or alternatively chump block with Crab. Alright, so before blocks, I now am gonna cycle this, see if I hit a Fatal Push. I don't. So now, oh, you don't fly. Shit, that's the non-flying one, so now I eat 7. Okay, I am dead then. I needed just a little bit more time. Leonin Arbiter is brutal for my deck. It just shuts down so much of what I am trying to do with the fetching and the Field of Ruins. If not for that taxation, I probably win this one. GG's. Okay. Opening hand here doesn't do anything. Like, surgical extractions, I don't think are good. Just full stop. And this is 4 interactive cards that don't advance our primary game plan. This one has to be a mulligan. This is a 3-land hand that cannot cast a blue card and also has 2 surgical extractions that are dead cards. We'll mulligan this and go to 5. The 5-card hand is also bad. I think this becomes Surveil Land and Prey. Put a land back into deck for later, and I'm going to value the redraw higher than the Fatal Push. Go ahead and pass the turn here. Misty Rainforest. And there is a Tamiyo. Fortunately for us, we bottomed the Fatal Push. If the Fatal Push is not live in the matchup, like I have a dead card when I have already mulliganed twice, I don't regret that decision despite how this is playing out right here. Crypt Incursion is not good right now. Alright, that is another dead to draw. I will just cycle this for 1 mana. That is another bad card. We're going to be on Surveil Land yet again and Prey. This is a terrible spot to be in after a double mulligan. Basic Forest. That means my opponent's not fetching here, which is unfortunate for our Archive Trap. Opponent's got their clue now and plays a Talisman. Sure. All Surveil. That's a Field of Ruin. That's what we just talked about, right? I also just have no crabs right now. That's a Visions. That's not great. Especially since Tasha's exiles. Alright, currently 50 cards in library. Let's see how hot we do here. We got 11. The issue is things like this in this matchup are going to be devastating. I did not come out of the gates quickly, which I think I need to do in this matchup. Opponent now up to 2 clues after another Tamiyo attack. And this is going to be a draw 2 that will transform the Tamiyo, which I think that's a it is what it is situation. I think the clues are scarier than the Tamiyo minus here. That is another non-fetch land, unfortunately for us. Archive Trap continuing not to do anything. That is another dead draw. I think I have to cash this in. This is what I'm talking about surgical extractions being dead. I'm gonna go ahead and make that land drop. If I miss on my draw, I think I have to just hard cast an Archive Trap. That's another non-fetch land. Tamiyo to 6. There's a Talisman. There's so many cards in this deck that don't mill. This is brutal. Opponent is now just cracking clues. And I suspect that if my opponent gets to ultimate this Tamiyo, they win even if I surgically extract some win conditions. That is another non-fetch land. Although honestly, this turn I'm just paying full price for it. Alright, we are now at Kicked Sowing Mycospawn levels of mana. So I will go ahead and float a mana here. The good news is that my opponent has now searched their library, so Archive Trap gets to be free. Bad news is kind of everything else about this situation, including my opponent ramping and having a Sowing Myco spawn in play. Cameo plus to 8. Archive Trap you. Fatal Push you. And I think I will wait until my turn, see what I draw, to see if surgically extracting them even matters. That's a Mockingbird. That is not a live card right now. Yeah, so I could surgically extract one of these threats, but there will still be like 8 of Hour of Destiny, an Old Drifter, a pile of Sowing Myco spawns. It will probably beat me. Let's try to play Magic, though. Devourer clocks harder. We will take Devourer. I technically do this in draw step. No, I guess there's counter spells. Do it now. So, yeah. All right, we got one out of hand. There's another one. So I've got Karns and Ugins and counterspells of various natures to think about. Yeah, my opponent should easily win the game from here. Like, do I make them do it? I guess sometimes I just absolutely fucking luck out and my opponent exiles the wrong lands. Given the number of counterspells my opponent has, though, they should always win. Alright, there's Karn. Karn gets to tutor. Oh, for coding. Ugh. Yeah, if I am losing one land drop per turn, and my opponent just takes Consign as well. Okay. Yeah, and they took the right land because this basic swamp does not cast my blue cards. Oh, well. Sure. Well, I mean, we're gonna try. There's a crab. There's a more other crab. Alright, pass turn. Opponent can, at minimum, destroy one of my lands per turn cycle. But they did this in a way where they're not Tamiyo ultimating to draw half of their deck. They can get back Force of Negation with Tamiyo, though, and presumably cast something that exiles either a land or a crab. Alright, that is a Causal X command. One crab down. That's another crab down. That's rough. That was a big turn for me to be able to potentially draw a fetch land the next turn and nearly mill my opponent out. Now, next turn, my opponent takes my final remaining blue source. Torpor Orb is fine. Well, there's a new blue source. Alright, this is miserable. I feel like I'm non-deterministically dead, where I don't win this, but it also maybe doesn't make sense to concede fully. Maybe I'm just wasting my time, though. At some point, the Sowing Myco spawn clock becomes real enough that I don't win. I don't think I play that yet. I don't know, maybe it's a now or never situation with that. I lose Obero for doing that, which is really annoying. Maybe we mill over some critical threats and it becomes harder for my opponent to close out the game. Oh, right, there's just fucking Consign on this trigger, though. I mean, maybe they search. They shouldn't search. Yeah, and I don't have mana available to bounce that. I'll take 3. I'm at 9. I was just going to get back Consign. My opponent just hardcasts Force of Negation on this Archive Trap, right? I'm going to say that this one is over. I think I get clocked by this before I mill my opponent out. GG. So I've got my own Consigns. Those are fine. I've got Drown in the Locks. Those are fine. Let's get rid of Crypt Incursion here. Let's get rid of Surgical Extractions here. My deck now has a higher density of things that do stuff. Fatal Push is awkward. I want it for Tamiyo, and I don't really care about removing 4-drop creatures most of the time. Baleful Mastery is a way to get Planeswalkers. Baleful Mastery is really bad to use on a creature, though. This is where I'm currently sitting. I think this is where I'm going to stay. This is fine. This Crab on 1 into hopefully Drown in the Lock relevantly on turn 2 into some number of Tashas and Archive Trap after that. Ugin's Labyrinth and a Talisman. So nothing that triggers an Archive Trap here. I think I am into just doing this immediately. Make sure that my Drown in the Lock is available at appropriate times. So there's some more mills. Last turn. Next turn, Field of Ruin is online for the Ugin's Labyrinth, which is hopefully cool. And sometimes I give up a surveil land for fetching now. Mistrise Village. Sure. Opponent just passes. I believe that it is correct to do Field of Ruin, but boy, do I want to Mockingbird. Yeah, I believe it's correct to Field of Ruin. This is put onto the battlefield, meaning I can do Mockingbird immediately as well. All right, so they're going to take their Ugin back. I'll get my island, mill you some more. There's a forest. There's an archive trap for 13. A spell pierce. Yep. But now I get another crab, which hopefully will be pretty saucy next turn. So opponent has their 4th mana source now. There's a Karn. Opponent tutors and goes for coding. It's going to be a lot less good this game. So Field of Ruin, trigger, mill 6. Then Field of Ruin, a land drop. Trigger, mill 6. Yeah. Down to 29 cards. And Cat just absolutely over my garbage can. Hello, Mr. Popo. Thank you for that. I'll just go ahead and pass the turn here. Oh. This criminal right here. This criminal, Mr. Popo. Settle on in, bud. You're trapped. All right, there's the coding, which I will go ahead and counter, mostly just to use my mana, because I have a ton of mana worth of stuff for future turns. It is a Veil of Summer. All right, you got it. He's going right back for the trash can. All right, hold on. I gotta kick a cat out of this room. Okay, so I lost a Watery Grave. Got it. So I will now drop Field of Ruin, trigger, Field of Ruin, that Boseiju. Doesn't really matter. I'm not going to need this black mana this game, probably. I'll get it as a distraction. So trigger, then I'll archive trap you. Down to 2 cards in library. And pass turn. Alright, we put a game win on the board. I can consider Baleful Mastery now that I'm on the draw. I could also consider getting rid of this artifact that just gets shut off by Karn anyway. Having to respect Tamiyo at the same time as all the other stuff is rough. Maybe the Drown in the Locks are enough respect. And I do this to respect the Planeswalkers. These Drown in the Locks might not do anything if I don't have any initial milling for my opponent. I think I mulligan this. Well, that Fatal Push isn't castable, but I would be throwing it away anyway. So I guess this is where we're at. I think this needs some help from the top of the deck to be competitive with my opponent's average draw, like an archive trap. Sure. Going for the Surveil. Okay. Well, assuming that all my cards resolve, this is now a decent amount of mill. Any sort of Dismember style card that takes off this crab, though, like, just ruins my entire draw. 3 mana with Eldrazi. Yeah, like a Colligan's command, or Kozilek's command that just takes out this crab here, means that these Mockingbirds are dead cards, and I basically lose the game on the spot. Yep. GG. That is not a card that mills my opponent. Last turn, when I was sent the initial deck list, I was told, I don't know why anyone doesn't run Mockingbird in their mill deck. This is why. This is why they don't do it. It's because if you don't have something on board already, these are dead cards. I just need to find something to do. Alright, there is a crab. My next turn can, in theory, be okay. I go crab, copy, land drop, mill 9. But the stumble here is devastating. Alright, there's a kicked Sowing Mycospawn, which is a disaster. Now I don't get to do the line that I talked about. I can't play crab, double copy, and then make land drop. That doesn't work. So instead, I get crab, copy crab, make land drop. I still get a mill 6 out of this, but the difference between a mill 6 and a mill 9 here is pretty big because I haven't milled my opponent before this turn. So I have a lot of mill coming via Field of Ruin, but I imagine that my opponent just does something big and dumb this turn and this game is over. Effectively over, maybe not literally over. Yeah, so we've seen this repeat a couple of times, right? Where my opponent just gets the coding, and now I get Rashad imported off black, and I'm in bad shape. I need live draws. Yep. There's that Karn synergy that we were talking about. So that is, in fact, not a live draw. So mill 9. Field of Ruin away. It's not like I'm countering your stuff. So we'll do Eldrazi Temple. Yeah. You can blow up. It's very awkward to, like, need to be playing towards triple blue. Accordingly, I think I get Island here. Mill 9 more. And I can't cast this anyway, so I'll be passing the turn. I could really use something like an Archive Trap to just help me out here. So goodbye, Sewers. My opponent's got 1 card. Hopefully it's just bad. I'm at 14. Please be nothing? Rats. There's a Portent of Calamity, which I always forget how this card works. So my opponent gets to cast 1 of these for free and put the rest into their hand. Got it. Alright, Karn, Consign, Sowing Mycospawn, Disruptor Flute. Sure. Choosing to cast the Disruptor Flute for free. I hope they don't name Field of Ruin. They might be naming one of my 3-mana haymakers that I could cast this turn, and it would be devastating. Alright, they've gone with Fractured Sanity. Okay. That's a hell of a top deck. So we Mockingbird. We copy a crab. I play a land drop, mill you for a gajillion D. Then Field of Ruin, target some random land over there. And we do get a match win, so we are on the board. Really felt like an uphill battle there, though. GG's. Okay, this opening hand is a handful of situational cards that don't do anything. This is an easy mulligan. The second hand has this same problem that I've complained about before, where my cards are not castable on curve. I don't know that I'm mulliganing this one, though. I think I'm going to keep this and hope to peel some more lands off the top to make this hand better. That one. Sewers, trigger. Gonna say no to another one of those. This is not a colored mana pip for Fractured Sanity at full cost, unfortunately. There's a fetch land. Opponent shocks with Hollowed Fountain. Archive Trap is good. Save targets with that. Always yield with that. And pass the turn. I need more land drops here. Unquestionably. We are just solituding immediately. And consigning the trigger. That is very bad for me. Now my opponent has a threat in play, and I lost my most critical card in my hand. There's a tapped Steam Vents. I can do Field of Ruin and then Archive Trap. That is probably solid. I would like to convert this into a blue land. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll fetch, grab a basic. Let's Field of Ruin the mana source that casts Ephemerate. You can float your mana. I'll pick up an island. Then we can proceed further into your turn. I'll Archive Trap at end of turn. Other basic planes. 13 on my end. Response. Archive Trap you. They forgot to activate their Teferi? Yeah, they forgot to activate their Teferi. Cool. Fatal Push does not kill a Solitude. Let's mill my opponent for 14. Excellent. Now I can F6 my opponent's turns. Arena of Glory. That's scary. That can change the clock. I was kind of thinking to myself, like, unless my opponent has a haste creature, I'm probably good here. That is Flage from Graveyard. Do I die right now? 9 in combat, plus Flage damage. Excellent. I am dead. Alright, GG. One more casting with Fractured Sanity didn't quite do it there either. I wonder if this matchup is slow enough where I might actually get to activate this. Fatal Push not answering some of the blink targets is rough. I think that means that I just do this and play Drown in the Locks. I think I keep the Surgicals and Crypt Incursions to clear out Flage. Baleful Mastery, again, is a thing for Flage and Planeswalkers and such. I don't think I'm going to do it, but I'm at least thinking about it. This is fine, I guess. My opponent is just going to have so much interaction for these crabs, which is innately going to make the crabs worse, and it's also going to make the Mockingbirds worse, because I'm going to not have my things to copy. Beyond that, none of these are also fetch lands. I don't get to maximize my crab value in that capacity either. Shocking with Hollowed Fountain and passing the turn. Okay, well that's nice at least. So Flooded Strand, trigger, mill you some. Get 2 Solitudes there. Fetch. I don't really need more black. Let's just save the points of life in case that's relevant. Force of Negation, Ephemerate. I don't really want to get this spell pierced. I'm gonna cast it anyway. I've got like Field of Ruin and Obro stuff to do with my mana moving forward. It's Mystical Dispute instead. Sure. Last turn. Sacred Foundry. Opponent is passing the turn again. They're not even close for visions, but hopefully we can get there eventually. So mill 3. All right, there's a Flage. I will end up surgically extracting that. I think I'll just pass the turn here, though. Everything else I want to do, I can do at instant speed. So there's Aphelia. I think I'm going to take this moment to attempt to take out Flage, and this can just inform me about the rest of my opponent's hand as well. Brick Serenade. Counter target artifact, creature, or planeswalker spell. Sure. Alright, so there's all 4 of those. Anything in here I need to be aware of? Not really. Let's go after the red mana here. Doesn't matter that much. My opponent has extra lands in hand. I will pick up an island. That mills 3. 14 cards in graveyard. We're not to the 20 yet for visions. I'm going to hold this card in hopes of it becoming good enough to be ancestral. So my opponent shocks to 13. Then they get to play Fable and then blink it when Felia attacks, which is annoying, obviously. This crab can block this turn. Next turn, this will be a 3/3, and I don't get the free block anymore, which is unfortunate, but that is what it is. Archive Trap is a turn late here. Might just be hard casting that next turn. I hope not. So mill 3, that's 17 in graveyard. We are on the cusp. That's land discarded. Arena of Glory, sure. Why don't I just blink my crab out of the way at this point, honestly, and just guarantee that these connect. Negative. Taking ye old Fable value. I'll block here, take 5. Then this comes back. Nearly dead. Alright, Polluted Delta. Trigger. There's now plenty of cards in graveyard. I think I go for this. Okay. 1 mana Mockingbird. That's Subtlety. 3 creatures in my opponent's graveyard. Not as many as I would like. So my opponent can blink my crab out of the way. They have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13 damage. I do need to cast this. Okay. To fetch, I'll grab a basic here. Be a basic island. Trigger. I might mill more creatures, and I did. Let's go ahead and Crypt Incursion. Currently at 11 life. Now at 23. So I've bought myself some time. Opponent has 27 cards left. But like they have so much power in play. And my blocker can get invalidated. This 23 life does not last very long. Opponent junks 2 fetch lands there. What are we doing with this? Alright, yeah. Now we are at the get the blocker out of the way stage of the game. Black Crab. Take roughly half of my life total back in damage. Crab comes back. A Forced Search would be pretty hot. Field of Ruin into Tasha's. Oh, we're just consigning. Hate that. The second Crypt Incursion, a whole lot worse than the first. This is lethal damage. 13 doesn't do it. I suspect that this also does not do it. Well, I guess I make this land drop first. It doesn't matter. So let's see if you die from 25 with Atasha's. I don't think you do. Yeah, that did it for 12. Worse than the archive trap. That'll do. GG's. Ye old mill deck is struggling. Okay. Again, Undercity Sewers being an ETB tapped land is so devastating. I think I'm still keeping this hand. I have double Archive Trap, assuming that my opponent plays a fetch land this game. I am off to a huge, huge, huge advantage. Well, that's rough. I've lost one of them. There's another ETB tapped land, which is real rough for me trying to cast spells on curve. Yeah, let's just go ahead and do this. Well, that's very awkward. This is either great or terrible, and there's no in between. If my opponent does any sort of fatal push things to this Ruin Crab, this Mockingbird is a dead card. I think I just put it directly into the graveyard and don't try to maximize everything going perfectly correct for me when my opponent has nearly perfect information about the contents of my hand. Opponent down to 13 life already. There's an Emperor of Bones. Sure. This is slightly awkward for me. The milling might end up helping out my opponent a decent amount with this Emperor of Bones. Like, I've still got to do it. This is what my deck does, but yeah, it's quite awkward. I'm thinking about whether or not I want to play just River Churn Monument and try to exhaust that as a mill for half of your deck card a few turns down the line. But again, this Undercity Sewers kind of bites that in the ass, right? Because at some point I have to get this land out of my hand, and I'm not guaranteed to draw another untapped land. So I think that just means incredibly awkward Ruin Crab and not fetch land. Ugh. Yeah. Alright, mill 3. That's a Riddler and an Overlord. Would have hit the other untapped land. I think I say no to that one, though. Yep, so there's Fatal Push. Opponent can now hide a good creature under Emperor of Bones for the future. Is a lot of value. They don't have more lands right now. I have more lands. I think I just play the River Churn Monument immediately here and assume that exhausting it ends up winning me the game in one capacity or another. Hopefully it doesn't get countered. I think Tasha's is just not going to be great here with all the Overlords and Quantum Riddlers and such. We're going to combat, but a Witch Enchanter. Oh shit, I missed that. I didn't see that. That makes this line way worse. I guess if the Emperor is used for that instead of a Riddler or whatever, that is perhaps a win. Just you, please. Yeah. Is this? Oh, sure. Aether Driftland. Got it. So I take 6 here. I am at 11. This is a 3-turn clock all by itself. Let's do the guaranteed 13 cards over Tasha's. Sorry, 14 cards over Tasha's. And I think I'm not playing land drops. Maybe I need to play land drops, actually, because there's timelines where, in order to win, I need to do something like cycle a Fractured Sanity into something else. Like, do that into Tasha's. I take 4 here. I am at 7. Oof, Thoughtseize takes a Tasha's. That's real bad. There's a crab. There's a land drop. Trigger. That's a Solitude. I think I need to get my mill value right now. If my opponent has an Ephemerate, I already am dead. So Watery Grave, Crab you. Then one more time. Watery Grave, Crab you. If they've got the Ephemerate, they are attacking me for 7 while removing my blocker. I open the door to let Percy out. Poe comes back in, immediately just knocks over my garbage can. There's the Ephemerate. I'm dead. Oh, you're getting out of the office. The cats, they cannot be placated today. Alright, I am dead. GG. Is there a timeline where I win this one if I play around Witch Enchanter coming back and I cast a card from my hand instead, maybe? How much am I supposed to interact with my opponent here? I feel like they have a better early game and a better late game than me, which is like very awkward in terms of trying to pick a lane. The graveyard stuff is really awkward for me here. I kind of need all of my cards to be live. My opponent can interact with my hand with my game plan via hand disruption and counterspells, and they can interact with my creatures in play relatively easily. One says, GG, big fan. Thanks for all the D&T content. Fatal Push misses a bunch of my opponent's creatures. I just feel awkwardly about kind of everything here. Let's Drown in the Lock. Not having these for Felia seems like such a big deal. What if I edge? Play like 2? Play 2 Leylines, could play 2 Surgicals. Surgical doesn't feel great. Leyline shutting off the whole graveyard might be better. My mana. My mana's fucking terrible. I'm still keeping. I'm just upset. Any land drop means that I have access to black mana for the Drown in the Locks, because I can Field of Ruin, and I have like Crab Obero. This is reasonable. I don't think it's great. I think it's reasonable. I expect to lose the game, but I have a decent shot at playing a good game of Magic here. That is just a Surveil land. Oh wait, Leyline of the Void, Drown in the Lock combo. Fuck, I realized that too late. Welp. Maybe they'll destroy my Leyline, huh? Maybe they'll destroy my Leyline. Fatal Push, I'll say no to. Back for 2 out of spite. Alright, so there's an Overlord. Opponent gets no cards. It's still in play for things like Felia Blink purposes. Leyline of the Void combos, baby! Alright, trigger, mill some. I think I am fine just firing this off immediately. I'll pick up another land here. This takes 1 color away from my opponent, and then I can use this bonus mana to bounce my Obero to continue abusing the crab. Marsh Flats. Guess I should pop out this zone. What I exile is technically relevant. Yep. Now my opponent gets to flicker this. I'm just going to go ahead and return this now. And then the Overlord comes back, sending a bunch more cards to exile for me. Leyline combo yet again. I don't think Leyline of the Void should be in this deck. Full stop. There's a Fractured Sanity. Do I get to play that for 14 cards? I'm just going to die in like 2 turns. What would the Drown in the Locks be instead? Surgicals or Fatal Push? Surgicals would be bad. Fatal Push may or may not actually be turned on. That's another Flicker Wisp. Okay. This may end up being good for me. In a very weird sort of way. The opponent goes trigger, does the self-mill. They find a Flicker Wisp, which they return. Now that there's cards in graveyard, I can Drown in the Lock a Flicker Wisp. Is this crab's lifespan up? Is this 5 life? I have 14 of 23 covered. I don't think this crab's lifespan is up. I need those last couple of cards still. Okay, so do this, bounce that, play that, do that, triggers, send everything at you. 4 cards in graveyard proper. Probably means that I'm just killing a Flicker Wisp here. I think I'm going to do it while my opponent is tapped out and they can't Ephemerate. I don't believe that I'm doing this dance around Leyline of the Void and making these cards work. 16 cards remaining. Fractured Sanity is 14. Overlord attacking is the rest of them. If Fractured Sanity resolves, I've got this. Alright, Flicker Wisp on Leyline again. We're doing the dance. Attack for 5. Trigger. Opponent can have any of those. That's all fine. Do I take 5? Sure, I'll take 5. Alright. So, land drop, bounce, land drop. There's a bunch of mill. And Fractured Sanity should be lethal. I could cycle it for 4, but that's not enough. So let's cast it. There's 0 cards in library. You have any nonsense that stops that? No, we force another game. I still have to win another one. Alright. That was a weird Leyline of the Void game that I managed to save. But that was very awkward. Because it impacts Visions and Drown and Crypt Incursion all at the same time. I don't know that I get to try to play that song and dance again. That feels like a disaster that somehow worked out for me. Let's get those out of deck. And let's start looking into some of this stuff here. Or the fatal pushes again. I don't know, at the same time, the whole Overlord nonsense is a really easy way for my opponent to beat my deck. I just naturally mill them into their stuff, and then when they stick an Overlord, it returns everything they could ever want. What if I don't play Visions? I don't play Visions, I just play 3 more removal spells. Could do something like this and still keep a couple of ley lines. Maybe fine? Question mark. I could also, like, get rid of the ambitious River Churn Monument. This does not make land drops. I have crabs. I don't make land drops. I think that just means I automatically mulligan. This is the same shit that I've talked about repeatedly, where these ETB tap lands don't let me cast my spells. I probably would keep this on 6 if this was an untapped land, but it's not. The 5-card hand is the best one that I have seen so far. I will do this. I'll do that. There's a Surveil land from my opponent. I get to play a Ruin Crab. I really don't want to see cards like Fatal Push right now. I just want cards that mill my opponent after taking a double mulligan. All right. Thalia is being threatened here. There's a Crab. There's mill a bunch. I think I leave open the Fatal Push for Thalia. I don't want to have this card. I want to just be milling my opponent, but since I have it, I think I respect Thalia. An opponent does indeed have the Thalia. I will fetch Watery Grave, Milia, and Fatal Push. Now at this point, I don't have any future lands for these crabs, and this Mockingbird is not looking great either. Clarion Conqueror. Activated abilities, I don't care about those. That's a 3/3. Doesn't shut off lands. Well, this is awkward. Crab. Fetch. I fucking dare you. I dare you, Maple Tree Frog. That's not a fetch land. That's devastating. I can't really attack that. That means these archive traps are now dead cards until I get to 5 mana. Luckily, this is happening. Trigger, 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 trigger. While I know that my opponent doesn't have a removal spell, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Go for sewers. A billion triggers. Another crab. I say no to the crab. Lands are so much better right now for multiple different reasons. Did my opponent activate Teferi Plus last turn? No, right? Yeah. All right. Big 3. Not quite to chump block Clarion Conqueror levels yet. Okay, there's a Fractured Sanity, which is 14 of my opponent's 18. That's real good. There's a decent chance that this gets countered, and it may even just be better to cycle it, but... Oh, never mind. They can't activate Teferi because of their Clarion Conqueror. Synergy! So at this point, any land drop is lethal. I will take this hit. I might start thinking about chump blocking soon, though. Witch Enchanter tapped. Witch Enchanter as a creature. All right. There's a land drop, baby. Crabs. Land can stay on top. We have gotten the GGs from our opponent. So we do end up putting 2 wins on the board today, despite quite a few problems with mana. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Honestly, this is close, but I think you've got to give up some of the stuff that's here. So with our mana base, you have 22 lands, and of those 22 lands, 6 of them don't cast your critical 1-drop on turn 1. That seems problematic to me. I would probably get rid of 1 Undercity Sewers from this deck. I think you absolutely need access to 1. I don't think you want the second one. And it may just be that you want, like, 1 more land in this deck or something like that. I don't know if 22 is enough, because you want to keep hitting land drops. Like, you have critical 3-drops that you want to cast. You, in theory, have a 4-drop exhaust that is a game-winning play that you want to be able to do. Sometimes you need to be able to hard cast these. So I think the most important thing that I would do is revisit the mana base. If you go up a land Maybe you replace Undercity Sewers with an untapped land, and then you squeeze in one more Field of Ruin into the deck as a way to force Archive Traps. That would maybe be reasonable. But every non-blue pip in the deck is costly because of casting Fractured Sanity. I'm not sure about the Monument. The Monument had a bad showing today. Playing against Karn decks in particular that just kind of randomly shut that off was rough. This is inefficient at everything except the exhaust ability, which is kind of cracked. I don't know if you need it. Tasha's sending things to exile rather than to graveyard is awkward anti-synergy. I mean, they're both ultimately working towards the goal of milling your opponent out, but they are not synergistic with each other. I don't think I'm sold on Mockingbird. I think Mockingbird makes your best draws better and your average draws so much worse. I'm not sold on Mockingbird as a clone for your opponent's stuff. I'm very sold on it as a clone for these. But, you know, Crab, pass. Fetch land, pass. Mockingbird, okay. Fetch, Fatal Push, your Crab. Crap. I played a 1-1 that has no synergy with the rest of my deck. I think that sort of stuff is going to happen enough that makes me not like Mockingbird. And there's a ton of cards in this deck that don't actively contribute towards milling the opponent. I don't think you get to get away with playing this many cards that don't mill your opponent. I don't think I'm on board with the main deck Surgical Extractions. I would just cut those for some more lands or some action. I don't know that I mind the main deck Crypt Incursions, though. Completely clearing out the graveyard and, you know, sometimes gaining somewhere on the order of 20 life is totally fine, and a way to buy time in a deck that can be a little slow. I could also see bringing Drown in the lock into the deck for game 1 scenarios. I think I boarded that in almost every round. Maybe Drown's where Surgicals are. Maybe you go down on Fatal Pushes for some extra lands. Maybe you find a way to get the last Tashas in there. Although, I don't know, Tashas might not be all that great in Modern. There's a lot of, like, pitch elementals and stuff like that that people are trying to cheat on costs. That might mean that Tasha's is not better on average than things like Fractured Sanity. Is Glimpse the Unthinkable just legal in this format? Probably not, right? That's legal. That's legal and it's not in our deck? Interesting. I don't know. It feels like Glimpse at 2 mana is probably doing what Tasha's is doing at 3 mana. And I'm sure there's mill players who have generated more data than I have from this league, but those are kind of my passing thoughts here. The things that were in the sideboard were fine. Maybe Leyline of the Void does not get the pass in the Drown in the Lock, Crypt Incursion, Visions of Beyond deck, though. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a day here. I hope you all enjoyed. Now I'm going to go empty my trash can so Poe will stop knocking it over like an asshole. Love you, Poe. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya.